Welcome to Be On It, episode 27.
Hey, Jessica, what's going on in the Beehive today?
Hey, Debbie. I just thought a part two, and you thought a part two was needed because we didn't get to some things that you had wanted to talk about regarding death. It's such a heavy subject that it deserves more time. So, with that being said, I know there's some things that you wanted to share, and I wanted you to have that chance to share.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, I was just thinking about this concept of death and dying, and I realized it's a very scary process for me. And I think it's scary because that whole process is very foreign to me. I experienced death for the first time, I think, when I was young as a child. I can't remember how old I was. First of all, my little dog, Birdie, was a terrier mix. I I hated running, but we would have to run the track for PE. I was one of the last people to get done. Sometimes I would play little games with myself where I would like close my eyes and run. And when I was running, there was this house that backed up against the track, and there were these two cute little dogs. They're small dogs, by the way, and they were terriers. And then one day they had little puppies. And I was like, my goodness, I want a puppy. So I begged my mom, and we went. I didn't even know these people. We went over to that house and we asked them, could we have a puppy? And I think
Oh,
she was free because she was a runt.
okay.
She was a runt. She was a terrier mix, pointy ears, light brown ears, and then she had a couple of spots on her body. Otherwise, she was white. So she was such a good dog. Didn't need a lot of training. She just was smart from the get go and really well behaved. She was a great dog, but she did end up getting ill. She went into the garage to have her last, moments. And we knew that, and I knew that, but I was scared to go to her. I really was. And I don't know why, but I just was scared because I knew she was going to be dying, and my sister went in my stead. She went and she took care of her and kind of was with her during her last moments of life. I kind of regret it because she was so well loved. She was such a good dog. I kind of regret not being there for her last moments. That made me think about how I have this reaction to death and dying. It's uncomfortable for me. And it kind of started back when I was little. This encounter with death and dying was with a small dog, but then I had my grandma too. She was she was much older when I was born. She couldn't walk very well because she had a lot of arthritis. She had like this walker that she used, or otherwise we would wheel her in a wheelchair. So pretty much stayed to her room, and then sometimes we would go out to the backyard. I remember one time I'm a young child, by the way, very skinny young child. I remember she wanted to go around, and so I would like wheel her in her wheelchair. And I remember going up this steep hill. It was in the neighborhood, but I was going up this steep hill, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this was not an automatic electric wheelchair. Like this was full on like manual mode." I did that for her because I really cared for her and I wanted her to get some fresh air. She was a really strong Christian, very religious, and very humble. She lived a very full life, by the way, too. She lived in North Korea during the Japanese occupation, came down to South Korea, had a lot of trial and tribulation in her life. And then when she got to her elder years, she just wanted peace. Even though she wasn't feeling very well, she would always get dressed up to go to church. And she would wear her traditional Korean dress. Her hair was pretty short, but she would use baby oil. I remember she used baby oil to like slick her hair back, and then she would have her glasses, which were pretty big. I would accompany her to church a lot. I just remember her singing a lot, reading the Bible all the time, looking out the window. My mom was super busy, as you know, trying to make ends meet. So I stayed with her a lot, and just a lot of memories, not of adventure, but just of kind of me observing her on a day to day of what she did. And it wasn't like a spectacular day routine. It
And
was
that was your
pretty,
dad's mom?
that was my dad's mom.
And you were super close to her. So do you think you were a lot like her in some aspects?
No, I don't think so. I remember because how she just had her routine
Yeah.
and was kind of confined to her room because she couldn't really move a lot. She couldn't walk very far. And if she had to walk very far, we'd have to use the wheelchair for her. She made blankets And she did what she could. She lived with us for a little while, not a very long time, up until she passed. She was coming up on a birthday. And so my aunts took her for a little while for like the weekend or something. I remember I had the task of going in and grabbing her medications. It was a quick, like impromptu, spontaneous, like, we're going to take mom for the weekend. And then she left. Next thing I knew, we got a call in the middle of the night that she had had a stroke. We ended up driving to where she was at. I think they took her by ambulance to the hospital. And when we got there, she was there in physical form in the hospital bed, but she was on a ventilator, basically on life support. Obviously, she wasn't talking. She wasn't who I remember her as. And of course, nobody preps the children because it was
No,
just
they
like
really
such an unexpected surprise. So we go into this hospital bed, and I just remember adults were swarming about, talking. And in that moment, I didn't feel comfortable grabbing her hand. I don't, and I think it's because of this thinking that this isn't her, she's,
so
her
you felt
body's
like your
here, but her,
soul was that transitioning and this
I
isn't really
did.
her, so what am I doing?
Yeah, it's like her body felt like an empty vessel. Like I felt like she wasn't there
I
because
get
she
that. I
wasn't
can
the
understand
grandma
that.
that I knew her to be in that moment. And I actually remember like they suctioned her mouth, which came up again. It seems to be a common thing that happens, the end of life care.
Yeah.
And they eventually took her off the ventilator and off of support, and then she was gone. She had an open casket and she was buried, and we had a memorial service at the church. And again, somebody I was close to. And in those final moments of death and dying, I couldn't handle it. You know what I mean? Like, I was young, no doubt, but I have always had an uncomfortability with death and dying. I was thinking, why is it that I have this problem? Because when you empathize with somebody, you think that in those last moments, of course, you want to be with your loved ones, maybe holding their hands or like at least touching each other, but I just couldn't do it. And
Debbie, I think that some people need to be able to touch their loved one, but I think when you're the one that's dying, I know for me, if I were dying, I don't want my family to remember me that way. And I think people, when they pass, they don't want you to remember their illness and what took them, especially if it's something that's taking time for them to pass. It's ongoing versus unexpected, where you didn't get a chance to say goodbye. This is where like there was a couple of days or a week or whatever it was. I think that people don't want to be remembered that way. They want to be remembered who they were when they
mhm,
were alive. They don't want you to focus on that illness or what
yeah.
took them.
Mhm,
And I think it's hard not to, because if you're present, you're thinking about them hurting. I remember when my uncle was dying of cancer, I remember he wasn't religious. I remember my uncle's wife saying that he should get saved. And that really bothered me as a kid. I was like early 20s, but I was still a young adult. It bothered me that she said that, and it bothered my aunt. It just wasn't her right to interject her belief system onto my uncle or make my aunt feel guilty that he wasn't going to be saved. That's her belief system. It was kind of sad, and it put a bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, no, God sees through everything. So if you believe in God and He's in your heart, you're going to be fine. I don't think you have to be attached to some sort of religious affiliation in order to have God's heart, because He created you and you're a part of Him if that's what you believe. So it always just didn't sit right. And my aunt, who is religious, um, the one that was married to my uncle, she was upset. She was like, "How dare you say
mm,
that?" And she didn't say that at the time. She's too polite, but it did bother her.
mhm,
And don't do that to somebody that's actively passing. Don't do that to family members. Keep your thoughts to yourself. You can think what you want, and that might be true for your belief system, but don't do that in the time of somebody's pain.
mhm,
Is my thought process on that. There's a time and a place, and that wasn't the place. But yeah, I think death is hard. I think people always speculate because we haven't died, right? We haven't died, so we always speculate what it's going to be. And if you are religious, then you know in your heart of hearts what's going to happen. And if you're not religious, then you just wonder. I mean, for me, I just think that it's not the end, that I transition to something else. My soul goes somewhere else. So I find comfort, like if somebody has to pass, I'm sad they're not here physically,
yeah.
but I find comfort knowing they're not hurting and that they're okay. and that makes me feel peaceful. I'm sad because I don't have them in the physical form, and I can't have those daily conversations or weekly conversations. I can't hug them physically. So that makes me sad.
It's interesting because she never was in any pain. I
Way to
think
go.
they medicated her. I'm sure they did. And so she didn't look painful at all. Her face was very like calm and at peace. She seemed vacant in
Yeah.
my eyes, and I was reluctant to reach out to her and touch her hand. I wish I would have grabbed her hand and just held onto her hand for however long I could until they pulled her off of life support. So I understand the tabooism around death and talking about death and dying. I get why people don't talk about it. It's very uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable because we don't understand it.
There's loss, there's grieving, there's so many emotions around it. So, but I think that having had these experiences and having had this conversation, I'm like, okay, I want to have more conversations about it. When my dad died, he died unexpectedly, was estranged to him for quite some time. There's so many unexplained things that happen, like divine things that happen in the death and dying process, because my father, whom I was estranged to, was in an accident, and we ended up finding out about it. We went up to see him, and all the x-rays showed that he had suffered so much brain damage that he wasn't really there. They were keeping his body alive. My sister and I went there and to see him. You know how we talked about in part 1 about the permission, that it's okay to go?
Yes.
Well, he couldn't speak. I uncharacteristically went and I actually grabbed his hand. His hand was very muscular hands because he worked a lot. And then it was kind of cool because obviously the circulation wasn't there. I talked to him, and again, the nurse came over and suctioned his mouth because
That's
the
coincidental.
secretions and all, because he couldn't cough or anything.
No.
Then I remember I started speaking to him, and mind you, I haven't seen him in over a decade. And my sister was close by, but she was watching everything. I was just like, Dad, it's okay. You can let go now. You can leave if that's what you need to do. I said it in Korean, and then my sister, she was watching the whole thing transpire, and she said he started furrowing his brows when he heard me speak, which
Wow.
that's not something that somebody does when they have had so much brain damage that he
Right.
had. And in that moment, she was like, something's still there. And like you said, hearing is the last thing to go, but then the processing of it too, maybe he recognized my voice. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But
Might have been a faraway, voice recognition. He might be in processing transition of death. He might be seeing loved ones that have passed. He might be processing him leaving this physical world. But you can still hear.
I guess he still did hear me and he recognized me, is what I think. And a couple days later, he ended up passing away. It was like in the middle of the night. We knew it wasn't going to be long, but we didn't know it was going to be that night. Before we had left the hospital, we said, please call us if there's some major changes. Went back home to our respective houses, and then she woke up in the middle of the night. She knew something had happened. So then she called and then got the communication that he had passed just a little while before she called. Then we made it out there, and when the spirit leaves the body, and that at that point he had died. It's just, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's just a weird phenomenon of like your vessel is there, your body's there, but your spirit has left you.
Yeah.
We debriefed afterwards too. I think Sherry's used to be open back in the day, and
That's where we went too after our dog
open.
passed. I'll tell
I
you the
know,
story.
open 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
We just had to debrief because there's no way I'm going to go home and do this by myself. Thankfully, I had my sister to lean on, and then my brother came up, and we all three debriefed because it just was a very hard situation. I think it's one thing if you are close with your family members and you have no regrets and lived a pretty good life, and were supported and everything. We had all been estranged to him, and I think I got really emotional after he passed because it felt like he did it all by himself, and nobody wants to do that all by themselves. I think I got really emotional then too. I think that like he wasn't the best dad, but he had a lot of trauma and circumstances, and it just made me sad for him as like a human to human, like to go through that all by yourself. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No. I mean, this is When we talk about finding forgiveness, it's for ourselves, it's our healing. It's because we're empathetic. Even if our parents aren't the best, we still have empathy that they didn't heal their traumas and that they didn't live the best lives. I think it's sad. You kind of grieve like what could have been. And he just wasn't in this lifetime, he just couldn't be. I do believe you will see him again and you'll see him healthy. And I do think that you'll have this understanding that he's sorry. But I think, you did you said you had a hard time being there when somebody transitions to death, but you were able to hold his hand. That must have brought a little bit of healing for you and forgiveness for yourself for not doing that with your grandma and your dog.
Yeah, it just surprised me looking back. But I think that when you're at that junction, especially if it's somebody that you're not super close with, but you have history with, I think it just goes to a level where you're like human to human, not necessarily daughter to father, but human to human. I have empathy for you as a human being.
I think it's bigger than that because, right, we're all made up of energy, right? And it's interesting. We are so deeply connected. And I speak about this where I'm so connected with my family. Sometimes I'll be thinking about them and they'll call, or I'll like have somebody heavily on my mind or something on my mind. And then they'll call, this need to call somebody. I don't know if anybody else gets that. And I'll call them like, hey, what's up? You were on my mind. It's this interconnection to people, family, close friend. Friends are my close family too. People will be on my mind. And usually when somebody's heavily on my mind, something's up. And usually we'll either get a phone call or we'll have to make a phone call. So
Call if you don't get a communique about them. We didn't have a we didn't have a celebration of life for him. We didn't have a memorial service for him. I've asked myself too of like, should we have? And I don't know.
maybe it would have not felt real. Like you gave him what it's hard to give somebody that didn't lead a good life a celebration of life.
I know. What
Like
are we going to
you
celebrate,
grieved
right?
and you celebrated. What are you there to celebrate? Like if they're terrible people, what's to celebrate?
Like his core is his core, but the way he led his life wasn't in the best way. So we're not going to be lovey-dovey. But I we had to deal with the aftermath of that.
You did something private and that was important with all of you guys there.
Even if you're estranged,
Right.
and if they don't have anybody to take care of their possessions and everything afterwards, it will fall into your lap because you've stepped up to be there for them. Then it just follows that you end up having to deal with his possessions and closing out his accounts and all these things. And because we were estranged to him, we had to kind of put XYZ together. Like this is where he was and look on his cell phone and like try to reach out to people that he had called recently to let them know that he died. So we tried to do that to the best of our ability, but that was just a crazy time. I actually was pregnant at that time too, so you can imagine I was very emotional.
Sorry I had to go through that. It's rough.
Yeah, that was super rough. But I live to say that I'm on the other side of that now.
Yeah. Speaking about your sweet dog Gertie, I love that name, by the way. Did you
Thank
name
you.
her Gertie because of ET?
Not at all.
Oh, how funny. You just like the name.
I just love the name, and so I named her Gertie.
It is a cute name. I love it. It just got me thinking about our dog's passing and how it affected my immediate family. I think about our dog, and I think everybody says this about an animal that they've had in their life. I feel like animals come into our life purposefully. And I had never set out to even I never had a dog. I always had cats and I always wanted a dog, but we just never had one growing up. And so I got married and here's the story. My father-in-law did not tell us that he got the family dog pregnant with another purebred chocolate lab. And I was looking at the dog because we were newly married and we were living with him while we were like waiting to purchase a house. And we had gotten married in September and I was actually pregnant 4 months after. So I was freshly pregnant. And I kept looking at the dog going, gosh, she seems to be getting bigger and things are like protruding. And I go, is she pregnant? And it came out, yes, she was, and she was going to have her babies.
Was your father-in-law like, yeah, shh, don't tell anybody?
No,
Like,
I
how
just
could
keep
you?
looking at my husband, I'm go, I never had a dog, but something just tells me I'm pregnant and my belly's expanding and Kwani's belly's expanding. And Kwani was taken too soon from the litter, so she wasn't socialized enough. She was a little bit, like,
Oh,
ornery. We had mutual respect, but when I first started dating my husband, she slept in the bed with him. If I'd be over there, if I even sat on the bed, she'd be like growling. I was like, listen, chick, we're not doing this. Like, this isn't how it's going to be. So her and I had an understanding.
yeah.
So we had mutual respect for one another. And I really do feel like you can talk soul to soul with a dog or an so she gets pregnant. He took her to the vet to make sure she was okay, but I don't think they realized how many babies she was going to have. When she went into labor, she was in labor for 24 hours. It was in the middle of the night. I was sound asleep and I had to go to work. And I remember the dog coming in, kind of bouncing on the door, like poking on the door a little bit with her nose and like whimpering, like, help me. Like, help. I was like, wait, what's going on? Oh, she's in labor. So I get up. There was already some puppies that had been delivered. So I came out to
Oh,
assist him because she literally had 17 puppies
that's
and
crazy.
one didn't make it. And so he was doing the best he could. And so I was helping him, getting everything situated. And my dog ended up being kind of in the sack. And so I like busted open the sack. And I don't know where I learned this. I probably saw it on some TV show, but I decided to do resuscitation and breathe into her nose and mouth. And it helped. And I kind of cleared her airway because she wasn't like moving or doing anything. And I thought she maybe had passed. So I thought I'm going to give this a try. I don't know why I did this. I did this. And so she was revived and she was the spunkiest. We used to say that I gave her like the wild version of me. She got the spunk. I breathed into her the spunk. But she made it. So of course I've got to keep her. She was my puppy. She was what you would call a diluted chocolate lab. So she was kind of gray, so I named her Gracie. And we were newly married and we finally found a house and we moved in July. So she was our puppy and I'm pregnant. So basically my daughter and Gracie grew up together. We were, making sure the puppies were all raised and my father-in-law was going to keep one. Silver's the one that he kept. Oh, he was sweet. He was like this big dumb big lab and just a doot doot doot
Lucky.
happy go lucky Silver, our big boy. And then Gracie, she didn't think she was a dog. She thought she was human. When our daughter was born, she was like the nanny. She watched over everything and she just made sure we were okay. And she liked to make sure we were all kept together. She was so, so amazing, like an amazing dog. I remember, her sitting on my belly. She recognized that I was pregnant. She just would like sit or rest her head on my belly. Um, and ever since my daughter was born, I just remember bringing a hat home for the dogs to smell because we were going to be coming over to my in-laws so we could pick up our dog and introduce the dogs to our daughter. And I just remember they had had a hat previously, so they had her scent. And I just remember Silver jumping over the couch just to get to see our daughter Riley and give
Hmm.
her kisses. Like he just wanted to kiss her. He was so excited. And then Gracie coming along, like, okay, she was excited too, but Silver was like super excited. We're like, okay, we're gonna keep you. Don't lick my baby
Hmm. Hmm.
kind of thing. But oh my gosh, like they were such good dogs with the kids, like amazing. Riley really had a close bond with Gracie, and I just remember they were just so close. And then when William came, they were close, and we'd go for walks, and she'd be keeping us in line. She'd make sure that we all stayed together. If the kids went swimming, she had to go swimming and she wouldn't let them go out too far, even with life jackets on. She was our little nanny dog, is what we'd call it. Like she was the nanny, keeping them in line. She just had an understanding. She just would always check on the kids each night. You couldn't shut the door all the way because she would just bust through it in the bathroom. You couldn't even go to the bathroom by yourself. She needed to be wherever you were. We had her for 14 years. 6 months prior, I just knew that she was not doing well. And I looked at her one day and I said, when you're ready, let me know because I don't want to make this decision. At some point, we're going to have to make this decision. She was just slowing down. She had never, ever had accidents in her life. And she was starting to
Yeah.
have some accidents and just wasn't herself. Like she was just kind of just not herself. And I just remember one day I had to head into work and she was just kind of staring at the wall. And I thought, something's not right. And so Matt made the decision to take her in. And I got a call at work saying that she needs to be put down. And I thought, oh my gosh, the phone call was the vets thought she should come in and needs to be put down. So they were going to bring her by my work. And I said, absolutely not. I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
The people at work were amazing. I was working in the NICU then, and they were like, "Oh no, please go home." And so it was Christmas time. My in-laws came, everybody came, and we all went together. The kids wanted to be in the room, and we were all there for her and petting her and telling her how much we loved her. And it was one of the hardest things I've had to do. I mean, it was so hard on the kids. It was their first experience with somebody they loved really closely. They've had grandparents. It wasn't Nana and Papa, it was my grandparents. They weren't that close compared to our family dog. And so it was their first experience with death and the loss of a pet and just how difficult it was around the holidays. It was just so sad. Basically, the dog just didn't want to go. It was so hard. So it was terrible. We said our goodbyes and left, and we went to Sherry's, and we were
Mm-hmm.
all just kind of feeling sad and grieving. And we decided to go get our Christmas tree that day so we could do one positive thing, and just feeling so sad. The people at the Christmas tree farm must have noticed that we were just so sad that they gave us some hot cocoa. They're like, you guys look like you need some hot cocoa. And it was snowing, and it was just like we're
And you're
trying to cut
like,
down a tree. And
do I ever?
I'm like, "Oh, you don't even know. We just had to put our dog down," just
Yeah.
it was just so I just remember it being so sad. Christmases just weren't the same. I think of her every Christmas. Her ashes are on our mantle, and we honor with her little picture on the mantle. And I talk to her picture and her ashes, and she'll forever be missed. I don't think I'll ever have another dog. I would feel like I were replacing her. I'll take care of other people's dogs, but I don't think we'll ever have another dog.
Mm-hmm.
She was just one of a kind. And when Silver passed, the same thing. It was very sad. He was such a sweet dog. He did something funny during the holidays. My mother-in-law liked to put out these snow babies, and she couldn't figure out. She had them aligned on the table, the coffee table, and they would get moved to other locations. And I was over there one day waiting for them to get home, and Silver comes and he gently picks up the snow baby and he moves it. And then he comes back, he picks up the other one, gently moves it, didn't break it. He just didn't like him in that spot for some reason. So I told her what happened. I go, you wouldn't believe this, what I just witnessed. Oh my gosh, I've been wondering what's been going on this whole entire time. Like, who's been doing this? Why are they doing this? I'm like, I don't know. He just didn't like it in that location. But yeah, I don't, it's like we love our dogs like they're family, and they were family. And it's really hard. My daughter says that was the hardest death for her by far thus far. And it's hard for her to talk about. And this year I didn't put up the dog's stocking. I wanted to see if anybody would notice. And I thought it was time. Our daughter would always insist that we put it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want us to be stuck in grief. I wanted us to really talk about it and move forward and honor our dog. She's always honored. And so I didn't say anything. And she noticed, but she seemed okay with it. So, it's like life goes on. We miss our loved ones. We honor them, we talk to them even though if they're not here. I think that's what we do when they're not here any longer. We feel their presence in everyday life or fun memories, feel them nearby on special occasions.
Your story and the whole topic of our conversation makes me think about how there's a lot of role reversal that happens with certain loved ones when they are at that point where they're in the process of dying. That's obviously an opportunity for us to step up to a different role that we're not probably used to. And that in and of itself is hard. So, like your dog, sounds like she was a kind of a protector of you guys. And I think that in that moment when you're seeing your pet or your loved one, they're just so vulnerable. You would be on your deathbed. You're just, it's the most vulnerable position to be in. You
Yeah.
can't do anything about it. It's inevitable. And as far as we are concerned, I think that there's a responsibility there, and there's a process of stepping up to the plate in a new role. It's very sad. It's just the whole gamut of emotions that are going through your head. So of course, your heart's going to be in chaos as well as your mind.
I totally agree. I think death is hard. Family come together, they argue, They have so much to say. And let me tell you, I've been surrounded by family that talk about the most inappropriate things when somebody's passing, and I'm disgusted. Um, and I'm talking about my family or when they think somebody's going to pass. This is not something we should be doing. This is unacceptable. And hopefully, people don't do that. It's not the time and place to, if you're not getting along with somebody that's coming to join you while your loved one is passing, to hash out, or be negative. It's time to like shut your mouth and be there for the person that's passing. Or
Yep.
if the person that's passing is somebody that you had an estrangement with or a hard relationship with,
Hmm.
put that aside, be empathetic, and just hold their hand and say, I hope you're better at wherever you go. I hope you're healthier. I hope you're a better human. I hope, and I forgive you.
And if you can't say those words, because sometimes you can't.
Sometimes you can't say that. Forgiving yourself. You're forgiving it for yourself, not for them necessarily, but
Yeah.
also
Just hold, if you can't say those words, I
just
would
hold their
say
hand.
hold their hand. And if you can't hold their hand, just hold the space for them
Right.
in silence, if that's all you can do.
Right, but don't be negative, is my opinion. Like, I've heard a lot of people be negative, and I'm thinking, okay, this person might have been X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't mean it's the time to hash out all the negative things that they've done while they're in the process of dying. I think, how would you feel if you didn't have anybody there, like during this transition? It's scary for some people. Some people look forward to death, some people are afraid of death,
Mhm.
some people are afraid of the process. For me, I'm not afraid of any of it, only because I've worked in healthcare and I've done hospice, and so it's familiar to me and I actually enjoyed it. So I'm comfortable with death. I understand that it's a process, and I understand and am empathetic to those that have a hard time. It's when somebody is actively dying, it is physically a lot. There are noises and things that the body's doing that if you're not familiar with that, it's very frightening. You think they're in pain. If you're not familiar with the transition of death, it's scary. And so being there for somebody, even if it's a friend, being supportive to that family member that is losing their loved one and just holding their hand and bringing some refreshments and bringing some food and just trying to be comfort to that person is everything. It's a time of so many feelings, so much chaos, so many feelings, good and bad. It depends on the relationship, right? Like you were saying, it's complicated. Life is complicated. Do you do a funeral? Do you celebrate? Like there's no right or wrong answer. You do what feels right or what the person wanted if you've talked about that. I feel like we should talk about these things early enough so you know what your wants are. It should be something that you have in order so you're not like leaving that for your loved ones to figure out. If you can afford to do that, it's good to have
Mhm.
those things in place or at least state your wishes and be there for people. I think that people are there initially for the funeral and they check up a couple of times after. But I think when times are rough and families still grieving, I feel like people get abandoned. And it's times when the holidays roll around and times when 6 months down the road, you have a core memory and you start crying because you remembered something about that loved one that passed. And you don't have anybody to talk to about it. You should be able to turn to somebody and go, this is what happened today. And I felt really sad, and you should be able to speak about it and not it be taboo. People should check in on people and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Not just short term, but, "Hey, how you doing? I know it must be difficult. I know that grieving is forever." And what you should say to somebody is definitely
Right.
not get over it because people don't get over death. People grieve in different ways, or judging people for their grieving style is another thing that I see that's pretty common. I think that's not fair. Everybody grieves differently. I think that, judging people for their grieving style is horrendous, but just try to be compassionate, empathetic, and trust me, it's hard. Especially, I don't even know when my mom and dad pass how I'm going to feel. I have all these mixed emotions. I'm going to feel sad. I don't know. It's complicated. I just knew I had to find healing for myself so that when that time comes, I'll be at peace
Hmm.
and it's not for them, it's for me. If anything, with those difficult relationships, you find peace for yourself. And that's what ultimately is important is peace for yourself. Death is going to always be there. We can't avoid it. When it's our time, it's our time. Unfortunately, some people's times are cut short. Just being there for your loved ones when that happens is so important. Do you have anything more to add? I was just gonna.
After a few good teary moments, I feel much better.
I'm
Yeah,
glad.
it's okay. It is what it is. You can't repress that. I will say that tears coming years after the event, so that's what happens.
Yeah, memories just pop up at the most interesting times. I mean, they just do.
I've had conversations about these family members, but I think the more conversations you have, the more granular you get about it. And so you kind of drill down even further and more deeper.
I think it's good to talk about it in your own way when you're ready. Sometimes we're just in so deep in our grief that we have no words, and that's okay. That's called a transition of grief. It's like you go through a process. Grief can be forever. I mean, it just takes time. Like you find more words, you process it more, but I think you can't shove it. You can't suppress it and shove it down. You have to grieve. Else it will find you. And finding support and checking in with your friends and family when a loved one does pass is so important.
As is just reflecting and having a nice cup of coffee or tea in the sunshine. Sometimes it can get you down. Personally, I find things in nature help me to brighten up a little bit because you don't want to be sad forever.
Me too. It's funny because that you say that because I associate my grandfather, my mom's dad, who I was close to, with the ocean because he and I went fishing one time and I got sick. And apparently I had this huge sturgeon on the line and we lost it. He would talk
Legendary. This
about this
legendary
and
sturgeon.
like this legendary story and like how we had this sturgeon on the line, but the line broke and this fish kill, and we would talk about it in the family forever. It was so funny. I got seasick and I was like, it's not for me, but I think of the ocean, I think of my grandfather, and so I'll go there to kind of regroup and reset, and it just brings back like I don't know, I just feel his presence and it just brings a smile to my face. Like they're always going to be in our hearts, right? We carry them with us in memories in our hearts and things that we see that remind us of them. We grieve those lost relationships or estrangements, or what could have been. All these feelings, right? It's like this is normal human behavior. And I
And
just think that,
maturation.
right, right. And I just think that we just have to be there for one another. I think it's so important. If you guys like what we're all about, please join us next time.
See you later.
Bye.
We are all about community. Join our community by following and subscribing to Be On It through YouTube, Instagram, and of course your podcasting platform so we can continue to bring Be On It to you.
Just so you know, this is for entertainment purposes only. We are speaking from our lived experiences and are not licensed therapists.